time like not continuing to read it. I just wanted to make sure that we all got on the same page. So if, as long as we can get caught up to the one, hopefully we're done with that. But I also want to take some time and really focus on getting clear vision for December. Okay. And the good news is I can talk real and raw on these Zooms, because if you didn't want to go to the next level, you wouldn't be on here. If you didn't want to go to the next level, you wouldn't be watching the recording of these if you do miss one, right? Like, it's different when someone feels obligated to show up to something, but this is something that there's really nothing tying anyone to doing this. So anyone that is doing this, I kind of want you to look around at them. And I know some people have their videos and some people don't, which is fine. But I guess what I want to say is take a good look at this group. The ones that are willing to stay up a little later, the ones that are willing to maybe read an extra book. I actually just saw Trista's story and she was like, how many of you read more than one book at one time? And I giggled because first of all, I never even used to read at all. And now I'm reading 3 books. Why? Because I had a girl reach out and say that she needs some leadership help and she doesn't even do a business like this, but she needed someone, and would I read a book with her? I'd have the heart to say no, so I said yes. So now I'm reading 3 books. But I also am kind of, one thing that I started doing with myself, and I feel like I do a good job at this, but I eat my own words. And one thing that I've really been talking about so much, that Pam Souders has been pouring into me the last couple months, is what doors are you keeping closed that the blessings are behind? And I really want you to think about that. What doors are you keeping closed that the blessings are behind? And I'm going to call myself out on one example. I was doing really, really good sticking to a schedule until about 2 months ago. Now, does half of it have to do with the fact that my husband is also the one that's like, it's fine, just do what you got to do, like run, like, so he is on board with me running like this, but I would tell you that we're not spending much time together. Well, I know for a fact that some of the blessings that are waiting for me are behind doors that I don't have open right now. Now, are there seasons where some doors are more open than others? Yes, and I think that's okay. I think that's normal, but I also know how many of you, and once again, I'm going to use this business as an example because it's something we all can connect with. How many of you, and you don't have to answer this, but how many of you that have been in a little bit longer than a month have noticed that when you're all in, close to the fire, doing the things consistently, it's very easy. But the second you take 2, 3, 4 days and step away, it's almost awkward to start again. You're like, where do I start? Do I say anything? Do I act like I never went anywhere? Do I just start taking my products consistently? Do I make a post and say, I'm going to kill it, when everyone's watching thinking, that's what you said 6 months ago? And then you didn't post, right? Well, what I'm starting to realize is that also can have to do with other things that aren't business. You slowly drift away from something, and then it's like, oh, it's kind of awkward. How do I approach like even getting back at that? Or how do I even approach working on that area? Okay, so here's what I really want to say. Look around, see who's here. These are the people you want to surround yourself with. They wouldn't be on if they didn't care. And like we talked about on the Monday night training, we got to hear from Kristen, and she's on here. I was here for her every step of the way, answered any questions she needed. I was leading by example. I was doing the things, but it took her really finding a sideline sister to run with that really changed everything. Doesn't mean that I wasn't doing the things or I wasn't showing up or helping her. But what she was needing was something that, for whatever reason, I just couldn't give to her. Right? So maybe your person's on here. So just kind of start thinking about that. Because here's the thing, like we always talk about this business, I guess put in a chat so I can see who I'm working with tonight. Put a 1 in a chat. If you go to a job that even if you love it, you still go because you know you have to go. Okay, most people. And I loved my dental job, but I would be honest and tell you that I still went because I had to. Luckily, I loved it, but I wouldn't have gone if I didn't have to. You're going to hear it once and you'll hear it again. The hardest part about this business is because it's optional, it will be the first thing you put on the back burner. You want to hear the other hard part? Because with this, you own your own business and you genuinely can control your success. And if when I say that, you think to yourself, no, I can't. Well, that's where we got to start working on that. Because that's where the disconnect is. How many of you, drop a 2 in the chat, if at your business or at your office, not talking at works, at your office, at your job, at your 9 to 5, at your night job, whatever, you've had people that have quit and within a couple weeks they've been replaced. Drop a 2 in the chat if you've seen that happen. Okay. The only place you are irreplaceable is the business that you build for yourself. No one can take that away from you. No one can replace you. But at a normal job, they will in 2 seconds. And I'm not saying that in a harsh way. What I'm saying is, why is it that we sometimes go to jobs that we don't really want to go, but we go anyways, even on the days we don't feel good? But with this, the days we don't feel good, we say we'll catch up tomorrow. Well, tomorrow becomes 2 days. And if you're anything like me, sometimes it becomes 2 weeks. And yes, even I've been there. Now, have I ever done that with posting? No. Have I ever done it because that stuff's easy to me. I did it with the stuff that actually meant something. Back in the day, it wasn't host to post, it was messaging. I mean, I couldn't figure out for the life of me why Aaron, Alyssa, and Tiffany all went ambassador without me. Well, they were all doing the messaging when Brittany Landrum wasn't. Okay, so with that being said, take a look who's here. But I want to get very crystal clear with what you want out of this in 2021. It'll make a very large difference. And how I can, for the first time ever, do you know I can say that and have proof to back it up? I'm a walking billboard for that statement. Finally. My time app has been reminding me of around like this time, sometimes posts will show up and it'll say I'm like looking for my word of the year, or I'm can't wait for the new year. Some of the other ones make me cringe because I'd put something out there and then I'm like, I did nothing that I said I was going to do. And what's sad was I actually could have done it. And I see that now because this year I've actually followed through with what I said I would do. And I've seen the difference. Right? But we got to get crystal clear. Okay, so I do want to, before we get into vision for where we're going, I do want to kind of talk about part 1 of this book. And for the most part, it's talking about your money blueprint. So I'm going to turn some music on. And I'm going to tell you right now, if you aren't interactive with this, it's not going to give you the same results. And I don't know where I got this, but I read this in a book one time, and it was actually this year, and it said something about like hearing something, the percentage that it happens is one, like hearing it, it'll happen this percentage, writing it down, it'll happen this percentage, saying it out loud and writing it down and hearing it. Like the more that you do to reiterate that is the more likely that it will actually happen. It's the difference between thinking about dreams, putting them on your phone, and actively taking a day and making a crazy board. Doesn't have to look like that, but the times that I actually thought to myself, what are some things I can put, tangible things I can put on my board? Because some of you I could ask right now, what do you want? And you could rattle them off, but you don't see it every day. How many of you, actually put a 3 in the chat, how many of you can honestly say you don't think about your dreams every single day? I don't. I don't. If it were not for seeing them every single day, I actually think I would go weeks, if not months, and not think about them. Because some of them seem so large and so big that it doesn't feel like what I did today affects that big thing up there. But because it's there, it's hard not to talk to you and know why I'm doing what I'm doing. And the time that it took to make that, it took me a day. I had to print the pictures. I had to cut the pictures out. I sat in it. I looked at it. I let myself go there. Have you ever had someone, or have you ever been someone to make a dream board and you just like slap some words on a board so that you could take a picture so you could get it done by a deadline? Been there, done that. That doesn't keep you moving forward. So the reason why I bring that up is with the money blueprint, I would like for you to write, and I'm going to do it with you. I've not done this. I had it ready, but I did not do it because I wanted to do it together. We're not going to talk about it. I want you to think about when you were younger. 2 positive money situations and 2 negative money situations. Let me just kind of talk just for a second so you can go there. Were you ever in a situation where you were counting money growing up, you were counting money to get groceries? If you were, that has something to do with why and who you are. Some people take it and become that, model that 100%. And if you read the chapter, you read that. Some people, though, it was enough pain that they ran from that and have become the exact opposite. Or they're determined to become the exact opposite. In there, it talks about how when you talk to someone and they say money is evil, you already know how they were brought up. And you already know that they're probably struggling. And aside from living the life of abundance, I guarantee they're probably not giving back very much. So I'm going to turn some music on and try to write 2 positive experiences and 2 negative experiences growing up.
When you donate plasma at BioLife Plasma Services, you're giving someone living with a rare disease the chance to do the everyday things that make the holidays so special. Plasma gives Bart the chance to witness his father-in-law fall into a post-turkey dinner slumber. And plasma gives Heather a chance to spend the holidays with Meemaw and Meemaw's new boyfriend's family. Give a holiday by donating plasma. New donors can get up to $700 in the first month. BioLife, there's purpose in your plasma.
Take away the melody. Take away the songs I sing. Take away all the lies. All the songs you let me write. Doesn't matter I am today. Say the words you need to say. Let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Let them see you in me. Who am I without your grace? Another smile, another face, another breath, a grain of sand, passing quickly through your hand. I give my life an offering. Take it all, take everything. Let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Just let them see you in me. With every breath I breathe, sing a simple melody, but I pray they'll get more than a song in me. In me. Let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Oh, let them see you in me. Let them hear you when I speak. Let them feel you when I sing. Let them see you. Let them see you in me. Let them see you in me.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep going so I can read this. Now, No harm done here. Drop a 4 in the chat if you did not happen to get all of chapter 1 done. And it's okay if you did. I actually am hoping that someone says that. Okay, perfect. As long as it was one of you, I wanted to read something because it's in here. And for those of you that read it, maybe it hit you, but it's so crazy. This story in this book made the chapter 1 come like full circle. So I'm just going to read it. It says, this reminds me of a story about a woman who prepares a ham for dinner by cutting off both ends. Her bewildered husband asked why she cut off the ends. She replied, that's how my mom cooked it. Well, it just so happened that her mom was coming for dinner that night. So they asked her why she cut off the ends of the ham. The mom replies, that's how my mom cooked it. So they decided to call grandma on the phone and ask her why she cut off the ends of the ham. And her answer, because my pan was too small. When I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, how true is that in everything in life? Sometimes we do things, but we have no idea why we do them. We're modeling what we saw, or what, even better, what we think we see. And I thought to myself, how many other areas of my life do I do things and I really have no idea why I'm doing them? But now it's my comfort zone, so now it's just how I do them. But doing them a certain way, how are you selling yourself short? Now, obviously, cutting off the ends of ham seems like a silly example, but how funny. I don't know, my mom did. And then the grandma says, because my pan was too small. And here the whole time they thought that's how it needed to be done. Okay, now here's my question, and you're not going to hurt my feelings. It's okay. I understand this is super awkward. We're still very new. Does anyone feel comfortable sharing maybe a positive or a negative experience with money growing up? That they almost had like an aha moment.
So I'll go ahead and share that. Okay, so one of my positive ones was getting to go not grocery shopping, but getting to go shopping with my grandmother and actually being able to pick out the clothes that I wanted instead of just the cheapest pair. Like, it's silly, but there was one time where there was a choir thing and we had to have black jeans. Well, instead of getting black jeans that I wanted, I just wound up getting some random pair of black jeans that didn't fit the way that I wanted them to at all. But that's because I was shopping with my parents. Whereas when I shopped with my grandmother, I got to pick out what I wanted. And like didn't have to worry about money or anything like that. So that was like one of the big positive ones, was getting to go shopping with my grandmother, because that's something that we always did together anyways. One of the biggest negative money mindset things that happened, like I still, like, my face still gets hot even thinking about it, but I was younger, and I remember getting through the checkout line, and we were at the grocery store, so it's not like we were buying extravagant things, like we were buying groceries. But we were at the checkout line, mom's card got declined, and so we had to say, oh, well, we'll be back. And we had like a cart full of food, and it's like, mom was like, well, we'll be back. And we never went back to go get it like that same day. Like, we went the next week after dad got paid or whatever. So like, that is a huge, huge impact. And it's like, but that's why, like, today when I go grocery shopping, like, I still, like, I'm very much so like, okay, so we have this list, like, we're going to go knock out the list, whatever. Like, it's funny how, like, after reading that and then sitting there and thinking about those things, it's like, oh, okay, we got some work to do.
Yeah, it's so crazy. And like you said, it's the book. Like, I knew certain things made me certain ways, because people would say, like, if I would do something, they'd be like, you're just like your dad. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, he's always been giving like that. And I'm like, and then I would think back and I'm like, that is true. He would give $5 when he had 4, literally. But that's how, before I had money, I was a giver. I give when I didn't even have my own stuff. There was also experiences where they were bad that I remember running from. Now, let me talk about a fear of mine, just so I can put like my junk out there too. Does any of you ever fear? This is super silly. So I know that most, if not all of my hard work came from not wanting to live the way I was raised. Even though it wasn't bad. I just remember being like, I just want to give. I don't want to have to go. I don't want to have to like put things on a credit card all the time. But it's also the fine line between then what do you give your child? Because if you give them too much, they won't know how to have a work ethic and work for it. So then I'm like, okay, I mean, have you ever heard stories where it's like every other generation, or it's like every third generation, there's like, they have money, they don't. They have money, they don't. They struggle, they don't. They struggle, they don't. And it's because if you struggle, the next generation's like, I'm not living like that. And then the generation that doesn't struggle, well, the kids that were raised like that have no work ethics. So then they end up struggling unless their bills are paid for them. So that's just something that I always think about and pray about, like, what's the right decision? But like reading this, it's like, man, the blueprint you're leaving for the kids after you. Does anyone else want to share? Yes, Sandy.
I know for me, and I really like this book. I'm glad you asked us to read it. And he's funny. I like how he writes too. But I remember one of our positive was when we moved into a house that was like in a good neighborhood. And I thought that was great. But I do remember my mom telling me, oh, we could have moved into a better neighborhood. I mean, even better than this. And she named the neighborhood. I was like, no way. She was, yeah, with what your dad made, we could have moved there. We looked over there. They were building the houses still, but he was too scared. He was too afraid that, no, what if something happens? Or I don't know. She knew that we could afford it. And so we never did. And so I thought about our life when we moved over here in Idaho, and we lived here for a year first in an apartment. And then we were looking for houses. And my husband was the one that said, well, let's look at the development. They're building homes in this development. And I was like, there's no way. No, absolutely not. And, but his parents had had a couple houses built, him being raised. And so that's how he remembered. And he wasn't afraid at all to go to the office and ask questions and all of that. And I'm so glad I listened to him, because we ended up doing that. And it wasn't even that much more than some of these houses that we were looking at to have, you know, we had to wait 4 or 5 months for it to be built. But so, yeah, this book was really like, wow, I've heard of this, you know, in the Christian sense of some of the stuff we still hold on to has to do with our past. You need to go back there, forgive, and, you know, but with money, I never thought ever that we would have to think when it came to money. But yeah, it makes sense to me completely.
Yeah, I love it. All right, Latasha, I think you wanted to share.
Okay, so excuse me if I start crying, but I don't know how to share them separately. So with this one instant, I can probably gather both positive and negative. When I was younger, I remember as a reward for brushing my hair, as you can see, I have a lot of it. For brushing my hair, we went to take pictures. So as long as me and my sister brushed our hair the best that we could, we got to go take pictures. We were maybe like 8, 9 years old. And of course we did our best, but that was like the first time that we ever were able to do anything positive or like get out of the house and actually go somewhere. And I remember it like kind of messing with my head, because I'm like, okay, and it was my grandparents. So I was like, well, why don't we ever get to do these things with mom? You know, why don't we ever get to get out of the house? Why do we always have to stay there? But then when I think about it, and now that I read that book, I was like, it opened my eyes. My mom didn't have the money. We lived paycheck to paycheck. She was always struggling. And as I got older, like you said, I didn't want to live like that anymore. Now, I'm not too much better than my mom, but I can say that I have not been back to my mom's house, since I was 16 years old. I have fought as hard as I could for everything that I have, and it's not much, and I'm ready to get more, but yeah, it affected me in multiple different ways. Because you don't want to see your family struggle that way. So I guess my reason why is to be able to help everyone. I need to stop that though. That's one of the reasons why I am where I am, because I give more than what I have.
Yeah, and I forget, was it in this chapter, or was it this book, or is it another book I'm reading? If it's this one, you guys can be like, yeah, that was here. If not, be like, she's coming out of left field, so it must have been one of your other books you're reading. They actually talk about how you have to take care of you and your own first before you go and take care of others. And that's something that, like, honestly, it's funny because for those of us that are givers, it feels selfish. And you're like, I mean, I'll never forget this. Some of you guys have heard this story. I won't say the amount on here because it was ridiculous, but it was about 1.5 years into doing this business. I started questioning why God had given me this success. I knew I worked for it. I knew I was showing up. I knew I was doing the things, but I questioned, like, what does he want me to do with it? And I remember, I kid you not, you guys would lose it if you knew how much I gave away that month. I literally just, anytime I saw a GoFundMe, I sent it. I sent checks to people. I gave away the entire amount that month. And there was one person at work. I was still, well, yeah, it was within my first year then, because I was, well, maybe a year. We were at lunch. But anyways, this one girl I used to work with, I said to her, I have to admit something. I gave all this money away because I feel guilty that I'm making this kind of money. And she immediately, like, whipped some scripture out, and she's like, no. He does, like, yes, you are to give your 10%, and you are to give and help other people. But he is blessing you because of all the times that you gave when you didn't have, and all the times that you put in the extra work and connected to those people. And it was funny. It's almost like you had to have permission to take care of your own. And honestly, I know it's for mine. It was my blueprint of, at that point, I was making way more than my parents ever had. And I almost felt guilty for making more than they did. It feels weird to make more than your parents. At least it does for me. I don't know. I look at my parents as, like, I don't care how old I am, I look up to them. So to be to a point where then you're financially helping them, I wanted to do it, but it was like, how do you work with this? Trista shared something. I don't know if she wants to share, but she said, it's interesting to think both of my positives involve my grandparents and both of my negatives involve my parents. So interesting.
I can share. So when I really never ever thought of this before, but when I think of, like, what I thought of financially secure when I was a kid, it was my grandparents. Like, we would go on vacations and they were always the ones paying. I never really thought about whether or not my parents were using credit cards or whatever, but I remember, I always used to say I'm a gift giver as, like, my love language. And the more I've dug into this, I'm not necessarily to my core, but my mom. So, for example, when I found out, my parents went through a really, really, really ugly divorce. And I remember the day that I found out that my dad had an affair, me and my mom got in a big old fight, and I was a bratty middle schooler, and I'm like, you're just so different, blah, blah. Like, we get in a huge blow up fight. And she blurts out, well, I'm not the one who had an affair. That's how I found out my dad had an affair. The response to that, to, like, make up, was she took me shopping. And to, like, I never really, until I was an adult, never really like, that's just how we fixed things in my family growing up. And so I always took that on as like, oh, I'm a gift giver, when really that's not who I am necessarily to my core, but it was what I had been conditioned every single time there was a big, that's how we fix things. We would go and we would go shopping. But then on the other hand, my grandparents were just steady as a rock, and they were steady. Thank God for grandparents, right? But really every single positive kind of thing I think in my mind about money when I was a child came from them, and every like rocky situation came from my parents.
Yeah, it's so great. I really do, like, you saying that and Sandy saying about this book, I really think this is a good thing to read for everyone, business or not business, because I think once you know better, I always like to use the saying, like, don't beat yourself up over something you didn't know. But once you know better, you have to do better. You know what I mean? Does anyone else want to share? There was something I wanted to read. And please, 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 if anyone decides like in 10 minutes they want to share, that's okay. Just put it in the chat and I'll stop talking and then you can share. Like it's that's how it is, and it's okay. It says your income can only grow to the extent that you do. And I will say, I can speak from experience that is true. If I wasn't doing self-development and pouring in and growing as a person, I don't think the income would continue to grow. There's something else I wanted to read. Oh, this is for me, this isn't even money. This is powerful in all areas. No thought lives in your head rent-free. Each thought you have will either be an investment or a cost. It will either move you towards happiness and success or away from it. It will either empower you or disempower you. And I cannot tell you how true that is. A silly example for mine. Was it yesterday or this morning? I can't remember. One day. Was it yesterday? Anyways, one day this week, my phone was on silent because of taping a video that I had to record. So it was on Do Not Disturb. So my 5 a.m. alarm, my 4:45 alarm didn't go, it went off, but it didn't sound. Okay. So I happened to wake up at 5:27 on my own. And I rushed down here. I'm like, oh no, I normally don't miss. I mean, whatever. So I got a complete late start. I was super flustered, take the dog out. Anyways, long story short, I didn't get my reading done that day to the extent that I normally do. And then by the time I got to my phone, I had heard from a couple team members that were being negative. Some had some customer feedback that wasn't great because of an accident of them being enrolled. My point being, I was not mentally prepared to take care of that junk. And it about wiped out my entire day. I found that adding to my stories was hard. I found that talking and making posts, it was hard. And I've actually talked to some of you recently, and you've said, I'm going through so much stuff, I don't even know what to post about. But if we had to ask the question of how many days have you gone without doing consistent self-development? Probably most of you that are struggling would be able to say, there's not been 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row or 4 days in a row that I've actually done it. So even though I'm very mentally strong for the most part, one day not filling my tank. I was not prepared to mess with that junk. And so reading that, no thought lives in your head rent-free. Each thought you have will either become an investment or a cost. And then something on the next page and at the end of this chapter, and then we'll move on to something else. Nothing has meaning except for the meaning that you give it. That was powerful too. Have you ever thought someone was mad at you because, actually, this happened the other day. Kind of super silly. She may be on here. I won't call her out because we had a good conversation about it, but she had sent me a text message and I didn't see it. I was downstairs letting the dog out, but we had been talking before that. Okay. We had been talking. And I put my phone down. I came downstairs to let the dog out to talk to Matt. About 30 minutes later, I went back upstairs. And I had a message that was pretty much like kind of attacking me for the post that I had just made on social media, because how could I make a post about her? And I was like, huh? What are you talking about? And she was like, yeah, I just poured my heart out to you in a message about some things. So I had to show her where I got that post from earlier that morning. And I showed it. I was like, no, like I saw this post earlier this morning. I liked it. And usually in the evenings before I go to bed, I will share powerful little statements. But I wanted her to hear my heart. So I voice messaged her. I was like, no. First of all, I'm surprised you would think that of me. Like, I would hope you would know my heart. But second of all, I did not mean it like that. But do you see how something can take a different effect or a different meaning because of the meaning we give it? When really, have you ever read something or heard something and you're like, they're talking about me? When they probably aren't even talking about you? But because we think they are talking about us, does it change your mood? Does it change how you respond? Does it change how you show up? Well, I'm going to tell you two things that I've learned through myself of self-growth. I know this isn't necessarily vision, but I think that in order to find vision, you have to find who you are. And finding who you are, you have to call yourself out. And I will say I've done way better job of taking accountability for mistakes that I've made. For instance, the old Brittany, if someone thought I didn't do enough, I'd get defensive. The new Brittany will instead of messaging, will voice message and say, hey, I dropped the ball here. It wasn't intentional. Will you give me another chance? But can we also come have a conversation of what are we both expecting out of this? Because if I don't know what you're expecting, I may fall short every single time. Because in my mind, I'm doing the best I can do. But I've also had to take a piece of humble pie and say, woo, yep. I did wrong there. I didn't do wrong on purpose, but I did wrong there. And I think the more that we grow as a person, I don't know if you guys saw this video that I made a while ago, but I made a video on social media about how I sent a very mean text message, snappy, not mean, but snappy, to my son's baseball coach. Friends, my son's baseball coach is Matt. I thought I was talking to my husband. And I was very rude. And when he responded, the coach, and I was like, oh, and the best part is this was a fall league, so I didn't even know this coach. He had only met Ty like 2 or 3 times. He did not know me. I'm like, I am so sorry. I said, God just talked to me through you today. Thankfully, he was a Christian. He was like, I'm proud of you for recognizing. Give yourself grace. We all do it. It's fine. I was like, and then I didn't text him for a while. I went straight to Matt and I called Matt. But here's the thing. 2 years ago, 3 years ago, Brittany would not have apologized to Matt, my husband. This Brittany got on the phone. I called. I said, quick question. Was I rude to you this morning? He's like, I don't know. He probably wanted to say, well, not any more ruder than you are any other time, hot mess, right? And he was like, I mean, yeah, a little bit. And I said, I need to apologize. Don't know why I'm mad, but we always take it out on the ones that are the closest to us. I told him the story. I went back to the coach and I said, thank you for my lesson today. I want to let you know that I have apologized to my husband. But because of that happened, I could have either got defensive or I could owned up to it. And I'll tell you what, ever since then, I've tried to respond differently. And I double check those text messages. Who exactly am I talking to before I hit respond? Now, that's just a silly example. But I think as we drop a 5 in the chat, if you can think for a second, I don't want to call them weaknesses, because God made us the way that he intended to make us. But he still wants us growing into the person that he called us to be. Can you think of areas in your life that you're like, I have work to do? Okay. The good news is, now here's the best part. The 5 acknowledges it to all of us that we have work to do. But you know what that area is. And some of you wouldn't want to admit what that area is on here. I'm not asking you to do that. What I'm going to ask you to do is be thankful that you are aware. Some people are walking around thinking that they have nothing to work on, that they're just fine the way they are. And I'm telling you right now, they're not inspiring, they're not impacting, they're not changing the world at all. To be honest, I'm not inspired by someone that doesn't have struggles. Now, I'm gonna call it like it is for me. Maybe this isn't how you are. I'm also not inspired by someone that has struggles and gives up. That's just my personality. It's not inspirational to me at all. And where some could flip the switch and say, I'm strong because I knew when to walk away, I call BS all day long. That's my personality. What inspires me is to see someone go through something strong enough to call it out to everyone and say, I'm facing X, Y, and Z, and I'm not through it yet, but here are the things that I'm working towards. I guarantee if you all were to get honest with your social media, with something you're facing, I'm not asking you to put out junk you don't want out there. You don't have to put that kind of stuff out there. But you can water it down a little bit. Watch your social media explode. And I'm not even talking about business, signing customers, signing distributors. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about making a difference in someone's life. Someone out there is walking through the same junk you're walking through, but does not have the support system that you have here. What if you are all they have? But what if those powerful words that they see give the confidence to go to church one time? Or give them the confidence to walk in that gym one time? Or give them the confidence to say no to someone they need to be saying no to? Or say yes to something they need to be saying yes to? And you cause that. Have you ever seen when you throw a rock in a water, how it ripples? My challenge to you is to be the rock that starts a ripple. I'll give you an example. What if you are the reason? I'm going to use Trista as an example, just because I know she won't mind. And it's not that it's anything bad, but like she won't mind that I use her name. Trista's into fitness. Trista has also posted many times that she's overcome things with body image that has made it hard to, do you go to the gym? Do you not? Do you post? Do you not? Do you do this? Do you not? Do you? She's finally come to terms with herself. Awesome. There's so many people on her social media that haven't. The more she talks about it, the more people she'll reach. And maybe Trista isn't meant to change Sarah's life drastically. But Trista's posts will trigger Sarah to move her feet to walk into a building that then she meets the person that was supposed to impact her entire life. That's how I treat my social media. Now, through that, I'm rewarded with little blessings. I don't know when they're coming. I don't know how they're coming. I don't know in what packages they're coming. But they just keep coming. I'm not saying it's easy. And honestly, some days are way harder than others. But I keep in mind, for instance, it was yesterday or today. It wasn't the phone day. Was it today? Yeah. It took all I had not to cancel that 5 a.m. power hour. And have you ever wanted to do something and you even like run a story and you make a story up in your mind? I'm not saying lies, but like you're justifying it. I was justifying it. I was like, okay. I don't know that she's on here, but Nicole Klesser has become one of my major accountability partners with that 5 a.m. club because she'll call me out. Not in a bad way, but she's like, are you not coming? Sometimes, you know what I mean? It's only happened like twice in 7 months, which actually is really, really good for me. But I even thought to myself, okay, I knew I had to stay up. I could make a post on the team page and just say, hey guys, staying up super late tonight, not going to be there. No one would have cared long term. No one would have cared. But then I thought to myself, all the things that I said I was going to do. And what if today made or break one of the things that I'm working for that's on the table right now that I'm busting my rear end for? So I thought, nope, not canceling, not doing it. Does anyone have anything they want to share before we wrap up with a couple other things? Let me check the schedule real quick. Next Wednesday, we will be skipping, but I'm thinking about moving it to Tuesday. Don't hold me to that. I just need to see if enough people could come, we'll move it. Trista and I and a couple other care on here, we earned a trip to Arizona, so we will be gone. And to be honest, if I'm gonna be transparent, I need to be poured into a lot. And so when I go to this trip, I'm going with the mindset of I'm being poured into so that I can come back and pour into you. It's another reason why I'm working so hard for the premiere. I know that when I go there, I'm going to get bits and pieces that no one else gets, and I'm working hard so I can get it for all of us. Will it happen? I don't know, but you better best believe that's what I'm working for. So if we won't, we will come back on the 9th. But I may try to sneak one in there. Would Tuesday work for some of you guys? Does that date really not matter? Okay, there's enough. We'll just do that. Okay, with this last few minutes, I don't want to go over tonight. I really want us to focus and think. Well, number one, this month is not over. I have seen I mean, what was it? I forget. It was either like 20, was it 10,000 or 15,000? When Cheyenne Knox went ambassador or went presidential, it was either 10 or 15,000 in volume. I think Kristen's shaking her head like she knows. Was it a couple days? Was it 1 day, 2 day, 3 day? It was something insane. Do you know what it was?
It was like 2 or 3 days. It was no longer than 3 days.
That's what I thought. Like 3
Right.
days to like 10 or 15,000 in volume.
Yes.
Like insane, friends. But the difference is she knew exactly where she was going. So instead of posting or stories or talking out of desperation, it was, I'm going to put it out there because it's going to attract to me. And I've been feeling that in my soul. But before you can attract anything, you have to be clear on what you want to attract. I think it was in this book, right, where it was said that some people, like, one day we want this, the next day we say we don't want that. Well, then we don't get it and we don't not get it because God in the universe doesn't know what to give us because we don't even know what we want. Okay, since I have just a smaller scale, I'm going to let you guys know some fun things. So the vision part is over. I want to let you know some fun things that I'm going to be doing. No one knows this. I'm going to be releasing towards the end of this month, where I'm going to do a 12 days of Christmas. And I am so pumped. So every morning, and I can actually do this now since I get up at 4:45. I hate that, but I do. Every morning, I will post that contest for the day. We will have 12 days of Christmas contests. Each contest will start in the morning and will end at night, and that person will win the prize. Okay? I'm super, super pumped. Okay? But I also know that, and I say this from a kind place, your team will do a percentage of what you do. Now, will you sign the unicorns sometimes that don't need you to show them what it takes? Have you guys ever saw someone post something and then you go take it and post it? I saw it last night with my Black Friday post. There's nothing wrong with it. Guess what? I stole it from someone too. Okay? But my point is, when I posted it, I saw it like wildfire across my social media. That proves that your team will do a percentage of what you do. They didn't not everyone mocked all my posts. And to be honest, that one got me no sales. The other ones where I talk from my heart are what get me the sales. Why? Why do people copy that one? Because it's easy. Didn't take talking from your heart. Didn't take adding your own picture. There's nothing wrong with it, guys. I stole it from Rachel Jones. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong. But what I'm saying is your vibe will attract your tribe. Who are you wanting into your circle? Get very clear. Sound good? Okay. So tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I hope you guys have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know it's kind of weird for different people, and that's okay. Okay, we're all doing the best we can do. We'll make sure we're not judging anyone. If you see some that aren't doing, that's okay. If you see some people that are doing, that's okay too. That's what I keep telling myself. Brittany, stay in your own lane and do you, boo. That's what I'm going to speak to all over you, okay? However, after that, we have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I will be bringing out things and opportunities for us to work together every day. with some fun twists. No Christmas of December may not be a prize. Your prize will be you promoting, okay? Ain't gonna give prizes just for doing what we should be doing anyways. But stay tuned for that. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And then next week, just know we'll be moving it to Tuesday. See you, friends.